Well, hey YouTube, welcome back my friends once again to Jack's Tech Hut. I'm your host Jack, and today I'm sure the title and the thumbnail gave it away. We're going to be looking at the differences between a compiled language and an interpreted language. Now, you may have been programming for years, maybe you use Python, maybe you use C++ or one of the other languages, or you might be very new to programming. You might be asking yourself these same questions. That's why I wanted to do this video, just to put it out there to you. And then I'm going to tell you about something I'm working on here in the hut that's going to be a little bit different for YouTube and hopefully a little bit exciting for you at the same time. All right, let's go ahead and get started with the presentation. Please follow along here with me. It won't be long. There's about 4 slides, but we're going to walk through these. And I am going to do what I hate teachers doing, is I'm going to be reading the slide to you, but I'll be giving you some detailed explanations about what is happening through the slides. So hopefully you enjoyed this video, and let's go ahead and get started. Let's get my big head out of the way here, and we'll pull me up right about there. Okay, so obviously today we're talking about programming languages, compiled versus interpreted. All right, move me down here now, get me away from the words. Okay, so what is the difference anyway between compiled and interpreted? So a compiled languages are converted directly into machine code that the processor can execute. As a result, they tend to be faster and more efficient to execute than interpreted languages. They also give the developer more control over the hardware aspects like memory management and CPU usage. All right, so right there, it's already telling you that the package itself, and we'll talk more about this compiled package, is compressed down into an executable program, which then you can give to somebody else and they can run it on their particular computer system. Now, interpreters run through a program line by line and they execute each command. Pretty much the same as a bash script, a PowerShell script. All those are running line by line. So it just starts at the top and it reads your code down and it executes the commands that you give it. So here's another, so if the author of the code wants to use a different kind of olive oil, he can search the old one out for the new one. The translator friend will then convey that change to you as it happens. All that's saying is a little bit kind of wordy, a little bit weird, but all it's saying is, so if I write code and say I'm using, we're going to be looking at today Python, but say I'm using Python, for instance, and I write it in Python, whatever version, 3. And I put my code out there to everybody. Everybody's running that code with the version 3 interpreter. If I in fact change that code and update it, and I update my Python to version 4, maybe version 5, it may or may not run quite the same in that version that you have if you have version 3, because the syntax may have actually changed. All right, so here's a few examples of different programming languages that I've played around with a little bit, that I've looked at, some of these more than others. So compiled language is C++, C, Rust, and Go. An interpreted language is Python, PHP, JavaScript, and Perl. Now again, I said this is a few, so don't hit me in the comments and say, hey Jack, there's many more, because I know there are many more out there. But I just wanted to touch base with a couple that I'm more or less familiar with. Now a compiled language needs a compiler. So you write your code, right? So we make it human form so we can read the code. And we take that code and we run it through a program or a compiler that takes that code and turns it into machine code, which in fact then, again, you can put on a computer and execute the code. The interpreted language, such as Python, PHP, JavaScript, or Perl, is basically I like to put it as, say if I wrote a file in Microsoft Excel, and I send it to a client, or I send it to you to use. You must have Microsoft Excel, and I know there's some free versions out there, but you must have a program to open that file. That file just won't open natively on your computer system. That's what the interpreter is doing. The interpreter is basically the software behind the program that allows the program to run. So there's a two-step process. With that said, I can tell you that you can compile, I know you can compile Python down as well as JavaScript. Perl and PHP, not so much. But JavaScript and Python, you can compile those, but natively they are a scripting language or interpreted language. Okay, so I wanted to give you some examples here, and I think we can do pretty good with this list that you can see here on the screen. So a compiled language. A compiled language is a program language whose implementations are typically compilers and not interpreters. Again, it's compressed into machine code. It's the language, once the program is compiled, it is expressed in the instructions of the target machine. Here's something a little different with compiled versus interpreted. A compiled language is, if I want to run it on Windows, I have to compile it on a Windows machine. If I want to interpret it, or if I want to run the program on Linux, I have to recompile it on a Linux machine. Or if I want to run my program on a Mac, I'd have to recompile that program on a Mac, which may or may not work, because remember, you're working with the hardware layer. So it may or may not work the same on a Mac as what it does on Windows. Now, there are at least two steps to get from source code to execution. Two steps being, you write it, you compile it, and then you have to execute it. In this language, compiled programs run faster than interpreted programs. And that is not me saying that. That is the truth. I've watched a lot of different YouTubers. I've watched a lot of different people, even before YouTube. We would see that code that was natively compiled on a computer system would run faster. All right. Again, I got to move my face out of here. Let's put me over here. Sorry about jumping around there on the screen. In the language, complication errors prevent the code from compiling. So this is one thing nice about a compiled language, but I guess interpret is pretty much the same way. But if I go to compile my language and there's a problem with the code, it will not compile. That's a nice safety feature, right? You'll get error messages will kick up, and it's a nice safety feature because it makes it so you cannot send a program to somebody because you know it's not running. Let's talk about interpreted languages. An interpreter language is a program language whose implementations execute instructions directly and freely without previously compiling a program into machine language instructions. What that means again is I can take the raw Python file and I can send it to you, right? I can put it up on my GitHub account. You guys can download it. You put it into your Python interpreter or your VS Code or whatever you may be using. Those instructions will run based on the version. As long as the versions are the same, it's going to run just fine. Okay, while in this language, instructions are not directly executed by the target machine. They're targeted by the software. Okay, that's how they're ran. They're ran through the software. This is only one stop to get from source code to execution. Again, I could write the Python file or the bash script, and we'll talk about that in 1 second. Python file or PHP scripting file, I can send it to you and you can run that program. Okay. While in this language, interpreted programs can be modified while the program is running. That I have not seen, but I guess that holds true. You can actually, but when the program is running, you modify it, then you restart the program ordinarily. In this language, all the debugging occurs at runtime. It has to, because as it's running down through them lines of code, it's going to find an error. So we can kick the error out to you and say on line 47 or line 447, there's an error, something you did wrong, and it's going to show you what that error is. So it's debugging it as it's running it. All right, so let's have a look at two different programming languages in VS Code. I loaded up two here this morning for you. So what we are going to switch to is we're going to switch to VS Code. We're going to have a look at two different programming languages, Rust and Python, and show you how they're basically running. Why do we compile one, but we just can execute the other one. All right, so let's go ahead and get started with that. I'm going to get off this slideshow. Get rid of that and minimize this. And here we go. All right, so here we are directly in. I'm going to actually clear my screen down here. Let's clear the output. Clear the output. All right, bring this up here. So all I did was I wrote two basic Hello World programs. And what I wanted to do was show you that writing software, and I have a lot of my students in class that we write different programming software languages. I normally teach them Python because it's very easy to understand, and it runs through an interpreter. So it's very easy for me to help them bug fix it and fix errors. But I also want to show them a compiled language, and I'm kind of landing on Rust. Rust to me is a much updated version of C++ or C. Take it for what it is. It has a lot of great features built into Rust. It's a more modern day language. So I want to teach them how to use Rust as a compiled language. And I'm going to show you here also in the terminal. I'm on Windows 11 right now. So I'm going to show you how these basically look when they run, or how you run them, okay, to give you the different ideas. Anyway, so not getting into the code, and I'll talk to you about that in a minute. Let's back up 1 second. There's two other types of a interpreted language. Well, actually three, I think, that I teach. Anyway, the three main ones I teach is PowerShell. Again, is a scripted language. It runs in PowerShell on Windows, so it is very specific to its operating system. A batch file, which we don't use a lot anymore, but I find them to be very handy when you're teaching computers and computer systems. Using batch files, you can automate a lot of stuff. And the other one is Bash, B-A-S-H. Now, if you're a Linux guy, you understand what Bash is. Also, I use Bash. You can use Bash type scripting languages on a Mac, right? Again, I use those for automation. So that's a type of language that runs in their own basic scripting or in interpreters. All right, with that said, let's go ahead and go into this code here. And I don't think I could blow this up at all. Oops. I can't make it any bigger. Let me see here if I can. I looked for this earlier, actually, and you kind of jump around here. And this is going to get me into my next talk with you about stuff I think I went in here. I went to somewhere here. I don't know where I went. Anyway, you should be able to see it. Format document. No, it was under settings. Settings. Maybe under profiles. Let's go to settings. All right, settings. Text editor. Font. We'll see if we can't blow these up anymore. Let's do it 24. And go back. Out of settings. Yeah, it is bigger. Okay. So here's your basic Rust program, and we'll get more into Rust later on through these videos. And what I'm planning on doing, I'll tell you that in a minute. Here's a cliffhanger for you. So here's a basic function of Rust, okay? I wrote a basic function called main. That's how we start out with Rust. I put curly brackets in there, and I put this line in there. Print hello world. This is a new programming language. And when I run that, you can see that sure enough, it executes the program and it runs it right inside of VS Code. You could be running any editor, it doesn't really matter. Okay, let's look at the next one. The next one is Python. Python, you can see why I teach Python to my students. It's a lot less code. Print, and I'm printing hello world, this is something new. And if I execute that, let me clear my screen down here, clear the output. Let's execute the Python code. And there you go. Hello world, this is something new. So you can see both of them work very well. It gives you the total exited time down here at the bottom. That was 0.14. And I don't know what this one will be up here. Let's see, 0.14. See if it's any faster. Actually, 0.97. So it executes a little slower, it seems like, in VS Code. So with those two languages, let's go reopen terminal here. All right, now I'm going to go back into my E drive, and we are going to simply go back to, where are we going back to? We're going back to, let me do dir. We're going back to programs. All right, dir. Okay. And we're going into difference. Okay, dir. All right. So what I'm going to do first is I'm going to show you how you would have to compile your Rust program to get your program ready to go out there and send it out to somebody that's going to be using it. So let's pull this. Now we'll leave it there because I probably blew it up. Let's go here. So we're going to do Rust. Okay. Rust C space. And then you're going to do your hello dot rs. That was Rust. I spelled Rust wrong. Rust C space hello.rs. Okay. So if no errors come back, that tells you that the Rust program has been executed and it's working fine. There's no error codes. To run it, all we got to do is type in Rust. Nope, I'm sorry. Type in hello. And you can see it says, hello world, this is a new programming language. So that is simply the executable that you're seeing right here, the hello.exe. That's what this line creates, this Rust C.hello.rs. That's exactly what it's meant to do. Now to run a Python file, okay, if we just type simply, let's do this, hello .py. Okay. And it wants to open up Python. See, it knows that it needs a program to run it. So we're going to close that. So what you have to do instead of that is type Python. I am running Python a version 3 or higher. Okay, and I know you can probably you can do a link to Python, but anyway, Python 3 space hello.py. Hello world, this is something new. Now, if I want to, we can just minimize this. So let's go into that Python file and we're going to edit it. So we're going to take this out, hello world. Now we'll put in here, this is my Python program. Okay. Save it. Now let's go back to the prompt here. We're going to run it again. You can see now where it says this is my Python program. Okay, so it's very easy to do either or. It's just one more step that you're going to have to do to get that Rust file to run. So remember, Python's running as under the interpreter. That's why you need to type Python 3. But again, if you just did hello, that is running because it's a compiled executable program. There's benefits, there's good and bad to both. I do teach, as I said, Python. I'm just getting my feet wet with Rust. Now, with that said, the new part that I want to do here is I'm going to blow myself back up here for 1 minute. The new thing I want to do is, you know, being a long-time YouTuber, I have a lot of other YouTube channels, but, and I have one called Jack's Photo and Tech. So if you want to check that out, there's a lot of tech stuff on there, and there's a lot of photography stuff. It was getting too I don't know what to say about it. It was getting too overbearing with either or. So I wanted to create this channel, Jack's Tech Hut, just to simply give you a look at technology stuff. Okay, I love technology, and I thought this would be a fun channel to do. So what I want to do though is I want to do, some of the videos are going to be lengthy because I want to walk through, I'm just beginning to learn the Rust programming language, and Python, you know, I've been writing Python for a long time. I used to be a C++ programmer, or C, I don't know, long time ago, I wrote programs with ANSI graphics, so that was a while ago. But what I'm talking about here is I want to be able to, instead of YouTube, most of YouTube videos and YouTubers will do something and it'll edit the crap out of it just to make you believe, that we're amazing people, that we know everything. What I'm going to do is, my next few videos that you're going to see talking about programming or maybe some other subjects is going to be me figuring it out, all right? Showing you how do you figure out to write code. And guys and girls, you can go to ChatGPT right now, or you can go over to Microsoft's, AI, type it in to write me a program, it's going to do so. But if you don't know what to look for, you won't know if it's any good or not, right? So that is not the solution. The solution is to truly know how to write software and write something you want. So I have a couple projects in mind that we're going to start working on. I'm going to show you how to lay a project out from start to finish. Just like when I worked for a company recently and they said, hey, can you write this program? I said, yes. What do you want it to do? And they're like, well, they weren't quite sure. So I'm going to show you kind of how to map a program out so you know what you want the client, so you know what the client wants, or you know what you want to design. So we're going to have a few projects to work on. You can work on it with me. Maybe what I'll do is I'll put the code up on my GitHub, and you can go there and download the code and play with it. But when you're downloading the code, I want you to write it. I don't want you to just simply take my code, paste it in your editor, and run it and go, wow, I got a program. I want you to write the code yourself. All right, so I hope I hope this video was useful. It's just something I've been thinking about doing for a while because there's too many people out there saying use Rust. There's too many people saying use Python. This is how. But I wanted to make sure that you, the viewer, knew, especially if you're new to programming, the differences between compiled languages and interpreted languages. So I hope this video solved that for you, and now you have a better understanding of the two different languages. Okay, so until next time, back up. If you enjoyed this video, hit that subscribe button, especially if you want to stick around and say, hey, I want to see what Jack does here coming up, to see my trials and tribulations of coding, how I learn, and, how I start building a project out, and give you some idea of how to do some research. But first of all, the first couple, or probably at least the first video, is going to show you how to lay out a project. And we'll talk about that project probably in the next video. Again, thank you very much. Again, hit that subscribe button. Give me a big old thumbs up. And I hope you come back here for the next video. Until then, as I always tell you, please stay curious. I'll see you back here next time on Jack's Tech Hut. Bye for now, everybody.